Imagine a creature that, well, literally watched the dinosaurs die.
Right.
It survived multiple mass extinctions, and honestly, it doesn't care at all about being optimal.
Not even a little bit.
No. Today, we are exploring why modern business strategies' obsession with perfection is actually a death sentence.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
We're pulling our insights from issue number 10 of Strategy Literacy. And it's this fascinating piece of source material titled The Cockroach Strategy, Survival Through Graceful Degradation.
Such a great title.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how you, whether you're, a senior executive managing a high-growth team or just an individual navigating a really high-stakes career, how you can apply the survival tactics of a deeply unglamorous bug to prevent your organization and your professional life from becoming utterly brittle.
It is a phenomenal piece of strategic analysis. I mean, it really forces us to confront a very uncomfortable truth about how we define success right now. We spend all our time studying, unicorns and apex predators, but the source text presents a literal case study in survivability across a full life cycle. And it's based on an insect most of us, actively try to crush.
Okay, let's unpack this because the contrast the text sets up is just wild to me.
Oh, it's completely night and day.
Think about a hyper-optimized tech startup today. To me, that is a lot like a Formula One race car.
That is a perfect comparison.
Right. I mean, it is gorgeous. It is engineered to the absolute millimeter. It has millions of dollars of telemetry behind it.
And it is incredibly fast.
It's incredibly fast on a perfectly swept track. But if a single tiny piece of gravel hits the air intake at the wrong angle,
the whole thing is done.
Yes, the engine seizes, the carbon fiber shatters,
Yeah.
and this multi-million-dollar machine is instantly reduced to garbage.
Yep.
The Cockroach, meanwhile, is basically the ultimate off-road vehicle. It's never going to win a speed record, obviously, but you can drive it through a swamp, over a mountain, into a literal ditch, and it just keeps running.
What's fascinating here is that the very engineering choices that make the Formula One car fast are the exact same choices that make it fragile.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
And the source text argues this is the fundamental flaw in how we build companies and careers right now. Strategies optimized for efficiency, for elegance, or for absolute market dominance. They're almost always the first to die when the environment changes.
Because they need everything to be perfect.
Exactly. Meanwhile, strategies optimized for survivability endure. And the text breaks this down by looking at how the cockroach actually operates biologically, starting from the moment it enters the world.
Which makes total sense, because if we want to understand how a massive system survives a total collapse, we first have to look at how it gets built in the first place.
Right.
So the source details the first two stages of this life cycle, which are emergence and early growth. And honestly, the lessons for early stage startups here are a massive departure from the usual Silicon Valley playbook.
A complete departure. I mean, look at the emergence phase. When a cockroach begins life, it has almost zero specialization.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, it doesn't require precise humidity levels to survive. It doesn't need a specific type of organic matter to feed on, and it absolutely does not optimize for peak performance.
Right.
From the very moment it hatches, it is biologically designed to function in a messy, imperfect world.
And that is basically heresy in the startup world.
Oh, totally.
I mean, every piece of advice you hear is about finding that flawless product market fit. You're supposed to design the most elegant user experience.
Curate the perfect launch.
Yes. And lock down your core demographic right out of the gate.
And that is exactly why the text argues so many early-stage strategies fail at birth. They are optimized for ideal conditions that simply do not exist yet.
Because the real world is messy.
Exactly. If your new business model requires a perfectly stable global supply chain, flawless customer acquisition metrics, and zero friction from competitors just to get off the ground...
You haven't built a business.
Built a trap. Yeah. Cockroaches survive the emergence phase specifically because they tolerate noise, they tolerate variability, and extreme scarcity. So for an early-stage venture, the lesson is to favor messy viability over pristine elegance.
The system just has to work.
Exactly. It doesn't have to look good doing it.
I can see that for a scrappy, seed stage company. You just duct tape things together to stay alive.
Right.
But as that company acquires thousands of users or hundreds of employees, that duct tape approach has to break down, right?
It does.
Which brings us to the early growth stage.
Mm-hmm.
How does the organism or the company scale up without just collapsing under its own weight?
Biologically, cockroaches do something really remarkable as they grow. They do not centralize their functions.
Okay, so no big central brain.
Exactly. They don't build a massive, complex central brain to manage their larger bodies. Instead, they build distributed sensing and redundant systems.
Interesting.
Yeah, a cockroach literally has mini nerve centers called ganglia distributed throughout its body and its legs.
Oh, wow. So they think with their legs.
Basically, yeah. If a leg steps on something dangerous, the leg reacts on its own. It doesn't wait for a signal from the central brain to say, hey, move. As it scales, it adds redundancy, not complexity.
Okay, I have to stop you there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Because I'm putting myself in the shoes of a senior executive right now.
Okay.
I'm scaling my company, and my board of directors is staring at my profit margins.
As they always do.
Right. Modern organizations scale precisely by centralizing control. We standardize behavior. We build a single global HR department to save money.
We consolidate our supply chain to one major vendor to get bulk pricing.
Yes, we eliminate all the slack to boost those margins. So, are you telling me a leader should actively build redundant systems, which, by the way, costs a fortune,
Yeah.
and pitch that to investors?
I know.
They would look incredibly sloppy.
It is a massive pill to swallow, but the text directly attacks that specific corporate mindset. It argues that modern organizational scaling, centralizing control and eliminating every ounce of slack, absolutely creates short-term financial efficiency.
Which the board loves.
Right. But it utterly destroys survivability.
Wow.
The only way to resolve that tension with your board is to redefine what efficiency actually means. Sustainable efficiency does not come from maximizing your output. It comes from lowering your dependencies.
Lowering dependencies. Okay, that sounds great in a textbook, but what does that actually look like for a manager on the ground?
Think of it like an explain like I'm 5 scenario regarding corporate slack.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say you manage an engineering team.
Right.
The corporate efficiency playbook demands that every engineer is utilized at 100% capacity.
You extract maximum value from every hour.
Exactly. But if everyone is running at 100%, what happens when one critical engineer gets flu on the exact same day a server crashes?
The whole system halts.
Yep.
Because nobody has the bandwidth to cover the gap. They're all maxed out.
Precisely. You maximized output, but you created massive dependency on perfect attendance and perfect conditions.
Oh, I see.
The Cockroach stratagem says that keeping an engineer at, say, 80% capacity isn't wasteful inefficiency. It's the insurance policy that keeps the entire company alive during a shock.
Because they have the bandwidth to pivot and fix the server.
Exactly. A system is cheapest to keep alive when it doesn't require continuous perfect coordination.
That makes a lot of sense.
For an executive, building redundant vendors or maintaining unallocated bandwidth isn't sloppy. It is lowering the dependency your company has on perfect conditions. High dependency equals extreme fragility.
So if corporate slack and redundant systems are the insurance policy, well, what actually happens when you have to file a claim?
Right. The fun part.
Yeah, we're moving from building this resilient system to watching it take a massive catastrophic hit.
Which brings us to the mature operation and crisis stages.
This is where we get into the biological reality of the cockroach under extreme stress.
It gets a little gross here. A little bit, yeah. They survive radiation, poison, and horrific physical trauma. I mean, a cockroach can live for weeks without its head, simply because its breathing and nervous functions are decentralized.
Which ties back to those ganglia we talked about.
Exactly. The key distinction the source makes is that these creatures do not prevent failure.
All right.
They tolerate it. And that introduces the most critical concept in the text, which is graceful degradation.
So they aren't building like a biological shield to stop the leg from being cut off.
No.
They just assume the leg might get cut off, and they have a mechanism to keep walking without it anyway.
Yes. The text states that strategy fails when systems cannot degrade gracefully.
Okay.
Think about the massive walls and rigid compliance structures corporations build to ensure nothing ever goes wrong. They spend millions trying to prevent failure.
But failure is inevitable.
Exactly. When an unexpected shock hits a highly rigid centralized system, the entire thing shatters all at once. The cockroach assumes failure will happen locally, and it is built so that a local failure doesn't kill the whole organism.
Wait, if they don't prevent the failure, they just isolate it.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's almost like a city's power grid.
Oh, that's a great way to think about it.
Right. If a major winter storm rolls in and a massive tree takes out a transformer, the system isn't designed to miraculously keep that transformer online.
No, it just lets it fail.
Exactly. It's designed to isolate the blowout. You want a rolling blackout in one specific neighborhood. What you absolutely do not want is the surge to travel up the lines and cause the entire state to go dark.
Right.
You want graceful degradation, not catastrophic, system-wide failure.
That is the perfect translation of the biological concept, and the source applies this directly to how senior executives and managers need to operate during a disruption.
Okay.
Managerial strategy isn't about enforcing absolute perfection, it's about preventing brittleness. Under stress, processes need to be allowed to degrade safely.
Give me an example.
Say a global supply chain breaks down. A local manager needs the authority to source imperfect, slightly more expensive materials locally without waiting for a centralized committee to approve it.
So they don't halt production for 3 weeks waiting for an email.
Exactly. Flexibility has to beat strict compliance when you are in a crisis.
I see the logic, but in reality, that is a terrifying prospect for most managers.
Oh, for sure.
How do you practically encourage your team to let things degrade gracefully when almost every corporate culture on the planet actively punishes any deviation from the rulebook?
Right.
We are conditioned to hit our KPIs no matter what.
This raises an important question, and it's a direct challenge to anyone in a leadership position.
Okay.
To build a system that degrades gracefully, leaders have to actively resist the intense, almost gravitational pull to merely appear optimized.
To look good for the boss.
Exactly. They have to sit their teams down and ask uncomfortable questions. Not if our systems fail, but when this specific workflow breaks, what is our degraded state?
What's the backup plan?
Right. Which single points of failure could actually kill us? If a manager empowers their team to find messy workarounds during a crisis, rather than firing them for breaking a standard operating procedure, they are actively practicing graceful degradation.
They're stopping that localized power outage from blacking out the whole state.
Yes.
So they're prioritizing the survival of the project over looking good on a compliance spreadsheet.
Exactly.
Because, frankly, when the market collapses, the spreadsheet doesn't matter anymore.
You can't audit a dead company.
That is a harsh reality check.
It really is.
But let's shift gears because the source material does something really compelling here.
Yeah, it takes a turn.
We spent a lot of time looking at the macro level.
Mm.
You know, the startup, the massive corporation, the executive team.
Mhm.
But the text takes this exact same framework and points it directly at the individual.
Right.
It asks how these principles dictate whether you, the listener, will survive a major setback in your own personal career.
This brings us to the final stage of the cockroach life cycle, which is persistence after collapse. And honestly, the lesson here requires a fairly massive ego death.
It really does. Because when you read the text, it points out that after a massive environmental disruption, cockroaches do not bounce back.
No, they don't rebuild their brand, they don't reclaim their market dominance,
Mm.
and they certainly don't restore their prior form.
Right.
They just persist. They survive in the dark without needing any recognition, without needing legitimacy, and without a shiny growth narrative to justify their existence.
Which is the polar opposite of the culture we live in.
Oh, totally.
I mean, we are deep in the LinkedIn era. Every time someone gets laid off or a project fails, there's this immense immediate pressure to spin it into an epic, heroic comeback narrative.
Oh, yeah, the whole I took a step back to leap forward thing.
Yes, or, this failure was just the universe redirecting me to my true purpose.
The source text actually uses public figures and highly visible professionals as an extreme example of why that mindset is dangerous. It argues that careers optimized for prestige, for a hyper-specialized skill, or for continuous upward momentum are incredibly fragile.
They are the Formula One cars of careers.
Exactly. Think about the hidden risks of professional prestige. Over-curated identities, perfect positioning, the desperate need to be constantly relevant. All of that creates a system with incredibly high dependency.
Dependency on what? Exactly, like public opinion.
Dependency on public validation, dependency on a specific market condition,
Right.
dependency on an unblemished track record. If your entire identity is tied to being a visionary thought leader or a VP at a prestigious firm, a single scandal, a bad quarter, or a shift in the industry can cause your entire identity to shatter.
Because it's so rigid.
Right. The text notes that surviving a scandal or a layoff matters far more than avoiding one, and low dependency beats high visibility every single time.
I'm still stuck on this idea of not bouncing back, though. I get that attempting to rebuild your exact previous prestige makes you just as fragile as you were before the collapse.
Yeah.
But does embracing this career cockroach mindset mean we just abandon ambition? Like, are we supposed to just keep our heads down and settle for mediocrity?
That's the friction point a lot of readers hit. But the text makes a crucial distinction here.
Okay.
Survivability is not a lack of ambition. Survivability is a precondition for longevity.
A precondition.
Yes, you cannot achieve your long-term ambitions if your career gets entirely wiped out by a single economic downturn. Real survival means killing the ego's need for a comeback.
So it's about building a career that can take a punch without the person falling apart psychologically.
Exactly. Strategic individuals build professional lives that remain functional under stress, specifically because they don't depend on constant external validation.
Right.
If your self-worth and financial stability require a fancy title, you are brittle. If you lose that title, you lose your foundation.
But if you build differently.
Right. If your career is built on a diverse set of transferable skills, maintaining low personal debt, which, by the way, is essentially personal financial slack,
Well, it's a great point.
and a quiet persistence to just keep doing good work regardless of the spotlight, you can survive an industry collapse. Professional prestige is often a trap. It masquerades as strength, but it actually creates hidden, massive fragility.
Because the higher the pedestal you build, the harder the fall, and the more exhausting it is to constantly balance up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You spend all your energy maintaining the illusion of optimization rather than actually doing the quiet work of surviving and adapting.
You're spending all your resources defending the ego rather than sustaining the organism.
Wow. So what does this all mean?
Good question.
If we step back and pull all these threads together for you, the listener, whether you are a senior executive trying to balance your board's demand for efficiency with the absolute necessity of building redundant distributed systems,
All right.
or you are an individual trying to build a career that won't shatter the moment your industry faces a downturn, the core takeaway is identical.
It really is.
The ability to survive a collapse matters infinitely more than the futile, exhausting attempt to prevent one from ever happening.
Yep.
Survivability comes from redundancy. It comes from deliberately lowering your dependencies. It comes from designing systems, both corporate and personal, that can degrade gracefully and developing a deeply ingrained tolerance for imperfection.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, embracing these unglamorous cockroach principles isn't a pessimistic view of the world.
No, not at all.
It is strategic realism. We live in a business culture that has become dangerously obsessed with continuous, unbroken, optimized growth. But conditions will always change.
Systems will always experience violent stress.
Exactly. The ultimate winners over a long enough timeline aren't those who manage to build perfect systems. The winners are those who build systems that simply refuse to die when the perfection inevitably shatters.
That is such a powerful reframing. We spend decades polishing our armor, and we completely forget to learn how to actually take a hit.
Yeah, we really do.
And that brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over after you finish listening to this deep dive. We focused heavily today on the macro level, startups, corporate management, and professional career arcs.
Right.
But what if we applied this exact same cockroach strategy to our personal day-to-day lives?
Oh, that's interesting.
Take a hard look at your daily routines, your household finances, or even your social relationships. How many of those are hyper-optimized for perfect conditions?
Probably a lot of them.
Right? And more importantly, how quickly would your daily life collapse if just one of those perfect conditions was temporarily removed? Are you building a personal life like a Formula One race car, just waiting for a piece of gravel to destroy the engine? Or are you actively building a life that can degrade gracefully, go off-road, and quietly persist no matter what the terrain looks like? Something to think about. Until next time.